Welcome to the Decipher podcast. My name is Dennis Fisher. I'm the editor-in-chief of Decipher, and with me today is my friend and colleague, Hazel Burton. Hi, Hazel.
Hey Dennis, how are you?
I'm doing great. It's so good to see you. I was supposed to see you at RSA. That didn't happen, sadly,
No.
for the second year in a row. One of these
Yes.
years, it'll work
Yes.
out.
Yeah. First COVID struck me down and then internal politics, but you can take that
It's
out.
budgets. Budgets are hard
But
for everyone, you know?
first COVID, then budgets. Yeah.
Yeah, it was sad, but we'll get it done one of these days. But it's great to see you, and I'm really happy to have you on the podcast. For folks that don't know, Hazel also has her own, well, she does a lot of videos and things here at Cisco. Used to
Mhm.
do the Security Stories podcast, which I absolutely love, and is kind of one of those people that is a natural storyteller, which is a word that gets thrown around a lot these days, and I feel like has almost lost its meaning. But
Mm.
I feel like every random marketing person you run into, like if you look at their resume, it just says storyteller. I'm like, okay, what exactly does that mean? Have you written like 5 plays? What are you doing? But
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Proper Shakespearean author right here. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think storyteller could or should be confined to marketing people. Like, if you're able to, for me, storytelling is being able to convey something meaningful to your audience. That's kind of what it boils down to. And I think it's just a really powerful way to create some memories and create some emotions when you're talking. And I think anybody could do it and should do it. For me, like, I always like to kind of give an example of so you and I both watched The West Wing, right?
mhm,
Oh yeah, good. There is a plot line in season 2 where Josh, the deputy chief of staff, has been going through a very difficult time, having just been shot, and is struggling to, he's suffering from post traumatic stress,
right.
and has recently kind of had a very kind of complicated episode, and has just shouted at President Bartlett in the White House. Now, he is incredibly worried about his job now, but to reassure him about his job, Leo, the chief of staff, doesn't say, "Don't worry, we'll not look back on this. You still got the job." He tells him a story to make it really land home, and it's the story of a guy falls into a hole, and a few hours go past. Then a friend walks by. Sorry, can I start that one again? It's a story of a guy who falls into a hole, and a few hours go by, and a priest comes by. And our guy says, "Father, I've fallen down the hole. Can you help me out?" And the priest writes down a prayer and throws it into the hole. A few hours after that, a doctor comes by the hole, and he said, "Hey doc, I'm in the hole. Can you help me out?" And the doctor writes down a prescription, throws it in the hole, and moves on with his day. Many, many more hours go past, and a friend arrives. And our guy says, "Hey Joe, it's me. I'm down here. Any chance you can help me out?" And the friend jumps down into the hole with him, and
Mhm.
he's like, "What the heck are you doing? Now we're both stuck down here." And the friend says, "Yeah, but I've been down here before and I know the way out." And Leo tells a story and goes, "As long as I've got a job, you've got a job." And just like the emotion, like, I'm getting tingly just thinking about it. Like,
Mhm.
the emotions that Leo conveys with that story is so much more compelling, so much more meaningful, and um appropriate for the situation than, like, "Don't worry about your job, like, I got it." Like, I know I'm talking about like a Hollywood kind of script kind of story, but for me the essence of it is, how do you convey the message that you want to in the most impactful way? And that's storytelling.
Yeah, that's a great example. I mean, obviously, Aaron Sorkin knows how to write, so I mean that helps. But
Mm-hmm.
also, I mean, instead of, as you said, instead of his friend saying, "Listen, you'll be fine. Don't worry, I'll take care of it,"
Yeah.
he gives them some context of why that's true. I've been in your position. I know how to get out of this mess that you're in. Don't worry about it. As long as I'm here, you're here. Which is
Right.
a very comforting thing to say. And as you
Yeah.
said, I think it gets the message across, maybe, I mean, more clearly, but also like in a more lasting way. like that
Right.
the recipient is going to understand it at a deeper level than just like, don't worry about it, you're fine.
Yeah. And I probably watched that, what, 10, 12, 15 years ago, and I still think about it. Anyone can regurgitate facts, but it's about how do you make that stay inside the mindset of the person that you're telling it to, like thinking less about, oh, I've got to get this information out like really quickly. Blah, blah, blah. Think about how it's going to land and what you want your audience to do. Do you want them to take an action? Do you want them to come back and have a debate with you? What do you want to change some mindsets? What do you want them to do? And kind of focusing on what you want your audience to do rather than what you want to get out of your head as quickly as possible and then run away. I think is what kind of storytelling is all about.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. So let's back up a little bit. It's hard for me to sort of describe what your job is at Cisco. If you meet somebody, at a cocktail party and they say, "Oh, what do you do?" What's your sort of like 2 sentence answer?
Storyteller. No.
That's, I walked right into that, right
Yeah,
into it.
yeah, you did. So I have like been at Cisco for like nearly 7 years now, and my most recent hat that I'm wearing is with Cisco Talos, our threat intelligence arm. And so I sit within the strategic communications and planning team, and I create content to sorry, I create content that helps us inform our customers and organizations and partners and governments around the world about what is going on in the threat landscape. So I'm a translator of complex technical information and putting that into a way that is memorable and actionable, essentially.
That's a pretty good way to describe it. I mean, and in that way, I think our roles are pretty similar. I mean, that's a lot
Mm.
of the way that I would describe what I do to people that, aren't familiar with, security or even, the way that journalism works. Honestly, I would say, my job is to take these complex topics and sort
Yeah.
of, boil them down to why an enterprise security team should care. What does
Yes.
it mean for them? What can I do about this? Okay, China's attacking, X, Y, and Z infrastructure. What do I go tell my board about that?
Yeah.
What do we need to do?
Yeah,
Um,
what is the resilience plan that we need to take
yeah,
because of what's going on? Yeah, absolutely.
right. And so the job is not to scare people every day. It's
Oh
to give
God, no.
them. There's plenty of other people that are doing that job. We don't need
Yeah.
to get on that train. It's to give people information that they can actually use in their day to day work to help their
Yeah.
organizations and their users become safer. Um,
Yeah, yeah, and I work with some incredibly smart colleagues who do a tremendous job of creating these protections and building the automations to deal with the common things that we see, and then doing some deep dive analysis on some of the new and unknown stuff as well. So yeah, my job is trying to represent everything that they're doing in the best possible way so that our customers can really take advantage of everything that Talos can offer them.
Yeah, I'm gonna embarrass you a little bit, and I want you to sort of brag about the mini documentary that you did with the Talos
Mm,
folks on their work in Ukraine. And I mean, I know you'll deflect all the credit to them, but I thought it was a really cool project that you guys did. For folks that don't know, the Talos team here they've been working with folks in Ukraine for several years. Long before this latest conflict. I know the origin story, but it's too much to get into. But they've been there for a long time and
hmm
have very deep contacts there in both private industry and the government. And so when the invasion happened, they were immediately able to sort of spin up a lot of protections and help get folks on the ground really really involved. And so it must have been last year that you started working on this documentary. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. It was conversations that we started having at Black Hat in August. And then from those conversations, I realized that the story I actually wanted to tell was, yes, all of the work that has been done up until this point to support Ukraine and the critical infrastructure and all the threat hunting that we're doing. That's obviously crucial. But I also wanted to convey just how personally our team took this invasion. It really hit hard. We have incredibly close friends and colleagues who were based in Ukraine who we needed to get out as quickly as possible. It felt like such a personal thing that people were doing, and I was so kind of invested in helping them tell that story, and how much that partnership with Ukraine has meant over the nearly the decade that we've been partnered with them. So the documentary was a reflection on what it really takes to threat hunt in a war zone and what impact that has on the people who are actually doing it.
That was the really interesting part to me, is sort of the individual personal consequences of the work
Mm.
that those folks are doing. I mean, granted that, they're not pointing a gun at someone, no one's pointing a gun at them, but the toll, it still takes a toll on
Yeah,
the folks, because they're seeing how difficult life is for their friends and colleagues there every day. And
yeah.
they're in some cases working around the clock trying to help. And, I've talked to those folks about it, and it's not a thing that you can do long term without some consequences.
No, and they have a very solid rotation system to prevent that burnout that we talk so often about in the industry. And like with this one, so we had people talk to me about the disassociation of spending your day trying to threat hunt and protect critical infrastructure that is being bombed, and then you put down your laptop and you go into like a safe environment, your Deliveroo arrives, and you've got
Yeah.
this nice comfy bed to sit down, and it's just like processing that, going from one mentality to the other, does like it messes with your brain. So I wanted to kind of hear about those stories and encourage people to share, because there will be people who are not just in Cisco and Talos who have been helping with this effort to protect Ukraine, who might be feeling similar. And I wanted to just talk about what the importance and the significance of that, and the changes that can affect you as a human being.
It reminded me some of the way that, if you've ever spoken to somebody that works in an emergency room, or,
Mm,
a trauma nurse or someone like that, they go through these extremely intense periods of, stress and work, where they're just completely focused on this one task.
yeah,
And then if you see them at the grocery store or somewhere else, and they just kind of have this glazed look in their eyes,
yeah,
they have a
yeah.
very difficult time sometimes separating those two things.
Yeah, yeah, it's hard, and this is like an area that I'm passionate about talking about as well when it comes to like mental health. Just recorded some podcasts with Matt Wachinski, the vice president of Talos, and
Hmm.
the Beers of Talos team as well. And when I spoke to Matt about how do you deal with this always on high pressure, high stakes environment, he had a very interesting answer, which is that the work is always going to be there. We're never going to solve the threat landscape by taking down one botnet. It's if you're getting 50,000 alerts today, there's no reason that if you manage all of those alerts today, you're not going to get 50,000 alerts tomorrow, which is a very glass half empty way of looking at it. However, you need to take a break as a result, because you're not going to solve everything that day. So prioritize yourself, and if you take a break, and you're not working 100% of the time, you might be working 80% of the time because you've taken that break. Well, that's much better than burning yourself out and working 0% of the time, right?
Right.
So just acknowledge that this is tough. It's hard. You're not going to win every day, and know that you've got a team around you and support around you who want you to be at your best and want you to take care of yourself. So give yourself that grace and that kindness, because there's no way you're solving cybersecurity today.
No, we're not solving it anytime in our lifetime, sadly. But
Yeah,
I think that's a great way of looking at it. The work is always going to be there.
yeah,
Hacker's going to hack. They're going to keep doing
yeah.
it. We could all go away for a month, and things are still going to be terrible when we get back. You know, hopefully the work that we all do, me at a much tinier level, but people like the Talos team and the other threat intel teams and defenders around the world makes things incrementally safer and better for
Yeah.
folks. And I know that, the people that get into that work, they think about it as, a public good. They're doing good for
Yeah.
others. It is, a sort of service. Yes, it pays very well, but you're helping people along the way.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if I've I know plenty of people that have gotten to the point where they're like, I just can't do this all the time anymore because
Yeah.
there's always another thing. There's always another thing.
Yeah.
It doesn't
Yeah.
stop. It's the rock you're pushing up the hill that's just going to roll back down and crush you at some point.
Yeah, and I think, yeah, you're absolutely right. A lot of us get into this industry because of the moral aspect. We're passionate
Mm.
about helping people. Like one of the main mantras of Talos is to make the internet a safer place for everyone. But there comes a point, like imagine an elastic band that you keep on pulling because you're just working so intently, and you're still passionate about it. You still know that you're doing good, but that elastic band is not unbreakable. There is a
Right.
point where it's going to be stretched too thin and it's going to snap. So the moment that you start to feel demotivated, or you feel that it just, like, what you're doing just doesn't feel as good as it used to, that's always like a probably quite a big signal that it's time to take a little bit of a break, go do something else for a little bit.
Yeah. Go on a hike, go,
Yeah,
go see the ocean, go do something that does not involve computers or, bad
right.
people. And
Matt Wachowski, he says he likes to get out a gigantic axe and start chopping wood because it's a physical activity. You can't really not think about it, because I guess if you're not thinking about it, there goes your fingers. And then at the end of it, you've actually got something tangible. You've got like a pile of wood to go and make a fire and stuff. So yeah, definitely doing something that is not focused on what you're doing, but allows your brain to fully invest itself and be fully distracted by something. And it can be anything along those lines, but I think that's quite a good example.
it is, because I know a lot of other people in the industry that, are painters, or, they do woodworking, or,
Yeah.
do some other creative outlet that allows their brain to really focus on something else for, X number of hours or days or weeks. And they don't have to focus on how broken the internet is and how terrible, the world is for a
Yes,
while,
the,
you know?
the apocalyptic nature of the industry that we have chosen.
Yeah. Great job by us. Um, So Hazel, I don't actually know this. I know a little bit, but how did you sort of get into the tech world? I know this isn't totally like where you started your life, but what was your kind of winding path to where you are now?
Uh, um, well, I've never known what I wanted to do ever. One day I will, but
You
I've
don't
never
have to.
been.
Who
No,
cares?
no. I've just
It's
followed
been
the
fine.
path of stuff that I've just really enjoyed.
That's
But
what
yeah,
it's
when
about.
I got a history degree, which is incredibly useful. Not,
Just
but I
like
love it.
journalism, Hazel, let me tell you.
I love studying history. I love having context for things and seeing different sides of the argument. But yeah, no, when I graduated, I took the natural path that you do when you take a history degree and you work in a Christmas department of a department store and got covered in glitter every day. It's fabulous. Whilst I thought about my next move. But I'd always been interested in filmmaking and creating content. And a job came up for a very small organization called the Entrepreneurs Forum, a small organization in the northeast of England where I live. And they wanted somebody to travel around the northeast, interviewing entrepreneurs and filming them to create a website. So I managed to, somehow fish my way into this job, and got in my car and started creating all this content. And I would be asking, people, how did you what was that defining moment where you realized, yeah, I'm going to take this leap, I'm going to start my own business? And
Yeah.
for many people, it was incredibly personal. So it was, I'm a single mom and I want to create an environment for my kids where I get to see them, but also create something for me. I've just been made redundant, and now just feels like the right time. Or I hate my boss, or I've got this idea that I just can't let go of. And talking to them about the challenges involved in where you go from that I'm going to do it day
Mhm.
to physically setting up a business, hiring your first member of staff. What mistakes did you make, so that they could, share those and hopefully encourage, that learning with others. I made the mistake. Don't make this mistake.
Yeah.
And look, their growth ambitions for their organization. And I must have interviewed like more than 300 people. I was there
Oh my
for
God.
quite a few years, and I was just so inspired. And so it wasn't a natural path into technology, but the chief executive of the Entrepreneurs Forum went across to a technology business, and a few months later brought me with her. And originally, I was looking at kind of event management and creating events. It's nothing I'm passionate about, but that was the job that was available.
Yeah.
And one of the events I organized was we invited some people from Sophos to come across and tell our audience all about what's going on in security. And it was James Line. Do you know James Line?
I don't.
Okay, have a look at him on YouTube. He is one of the most engaging, bonkers, like incredible speakers I have ever like. I don't know if he wears like a stepometer, but he must cover like 20,000 steps when he's on stage. He's like
Oh God.
bounding about like the
I know the type you mean. Yeah.
yeah, but not like the Microsoft guy,
Not the
better
Steve
than that.
Ballmer gift.
Steve
Yeah.
Ballmer, there we go. Yeah.
Developers.
And he was doing live demos and things, but he was talking about security in a way that it genuinely made me care about the impact of what he was doing. And, I just felt like that's just incredibly interesting. So I decided to change jobs where I was, but not tell anybody, if that makes sense. I,
It does. I love it.
I created a studio, which was basically just an old office at the end of the hall, and I started filming some of our security experts to create like a chat show type thing,
Okay.
talking about topical security topics. I then started creating animated videos, and along those, I felt such a strong connection to this topic, and then yeah, just uh, a few years after that, the Cisco recruiter spotted some of the content that I've been creating on LinkedIn and asked if I'd be interested. They were redesigning how they did marketing and wanted someone who was based in the UK to kind of run the UK side of their security marketing. And I was like, I think you've got the wrong person.
Are you familiar with my work? Are you sure?
Yeah. Yeah, no, 6 interviews later, and yeah, and yeah, I've been fortunate to kind of grow and expand my career in Cisco, outside of that, like moving into the global team, and now landing in my dream role at Talos, and acting as a translator, doing some data-driven storytelling, and yeah, I absolutely love it. So not the most linear journey, but I expect most people that you talk to don't have a linear story yet either.
It's
Mm.
true. I mean, those are the most interesting ones. There's so few people there's some, but most of the people that I find the most interesting in our community are the ones that have some, sort of zigzag path to where they've gotten. I mean,
Right.
a lot of the folks I know that are security researchers or have started their own companies or whatever, were history majors or they were mechanics or they
Yeah.
did something completely outside of technology or security at all, and
Mm.
then just sort of somehow got involved and got passionate about it and saw a problem that they could help solve.
Yeah, and
Um,
I love stories like that. And I remember talking to somebody who was a nurse, and she was constantly giving her security badge to other kind of employees to get into a restricted area,
yeah,
thinking, hmm, because they'd lost theirs, and like, I don't, like, this doesn't feel right. It's not like the most secure thing to do. And then she actually ended up working with the IT team to come up with a more secure process, loved the experience so much that I mean, the medicine world lost a nurse, but the security world gained an analyst. So it's weird. It can get you at different times, but most people have a personal reason for coming into this industry, which I just kind of love finding out.
Yeah, I do too. And I think, depending on whatever role it is, it takes some kind of analytical mindset, like you just described with that nurse who's
Mm.
looks at a problem that seems like it's something that people do in an office every single day. They're not supposed to, but you hold the door open for somebody behind you that you don't
Yeah.
totally
Mm.
recognize or whatever. And you're like, okay, there's got to be a better way to go about this instead of us just handing our passes to people that left theirs in their car or
Yeah.
something like that. It's people that like to solve problems. I
Yeah.
think there's a lot of people in this industry that, you know, do 5,000 piece jigsaw puzzles, or they do those, insane online, treasure hunts or that kind of stuff that just like take
Yeah. Like to
tons
break
of,
things and then like to see how it goes back together. Yeah.
yeah, that's exactly what it is. It just kind of comes down to that. Yeah. I'm mostly about the breaking part. I don't really put stuff together these days, but,
Yeah. Someone else's problem.
yeah, that's not what I do here. Um, so now that you have this great role at Talos, what else are you interested in doing? I know you're doing the podcast like you just described. Are you going to be
Mm.
doing more videos? Like, I mean, the Ukraine thing was a long-term thing, but are you going to be doing more short form videos, or what's in the hopper?
Yeah. So I'm about 4 weeks into my new role. So I'm looking at developing a couple of things. One is a series which is coming out as we record tomorrow. It's called The Need to Know. And this takes some of our more technical research. So it's like, for example, how this came about is Talos Incident Response create a quarterly report based on like anomalized data from their engagements. So like
Right.
whatever they've been called in to help in terms of our customers having a problem or a breach. They're kind of like pulling together this anonymized data to reflect on what is troubling the
Hmm.
security landscape at the moment. The number one threat from the most recent report was web shells. And that was a new one, like that. That hadn't appeared in like the top three before, and I was like, web shells. How many people know about web shells? So I created a blog post which kind of talked about what they are, how attackers are using them, and like how they, it's basically like they have created a secret door which only they have the key to, and they can come and go as much as they want. And also some like examples of what we've been seeing in the fields. So taking one particular aspect of that very, very comprehensive fantastic report, but narrowing down a little bit of focus so that anyone who wasn't sure, what web shells are or wants to be able to convey that to the board or whatever, has this like resource to be able to do that. And I try and do it in a bit of a storytelling way so it's memorable. So I'll be doing those very, very regularly. The next topic we're looking at is double extortion ransomware attacks.
Oh,
We'll
nice.
be covering like all sorts of stuff. So there'll be an article and there'll be a storytelling video to go along with all of those. I'm also looking at expanding a current series that I have. So I work with the European team to do a monthly threat update, depending on whatever is top of mind at the moment. So I'm now going to expand that series to our APJC region and also our Americas region. So talking to those field teams about what they're seeing, and then doing a monthly update for our customers. So those are probably the top two at the moment, but I've got a couple more irons in the fire, and it's a really great role, and it just has there's a lot of autonomy to go ahead and like create stuff. So
Yeah.
talk to me again in a couple of months, and I might have a few more things that I'll be able to talk about.
I'm sure you will. Yeah, it sounds great. I mean, I love the idea of you just kind of getting to go off and do these projects that you're interested in, and
Yeah,
make them interesting for customers and partners, and help
yeah.
everyone understand the threat landscape.
I hope so. Yeah.
Um, oh, I think so. Yeah. So the other thing that we definitely need to talk about is your other passion, which is improv comedy, which to me
Mm.
sounds like literally the most terrifying thing I could possibly consider doing. How did you get into that? And we've talked about this a little bit, but how does that the mindset that it takes to do improv and think on your feet and face something scary every time you're up there, how does that apply to the work that we do in the security world?
Yeah, I would. Well, first of all, I think it's a mindset that you can develop. It's not something
Mm.
that you have or you don't have. You think if you think you're not quick-witted, I challenge you to think again, because I was very much the same mindset. I was like, that is the scariest thing in the world to me. And I have a good friend, I'd been going to see him do improv comedy for a few years, jumping onto stage, nothing prepared, and creating stories out of nothing. And I'm like, yeah, well done, genius. Never, ever, ever going to happen for me.
Absolutely not.
Yeah. Then, well, my personal circumstances changed around, this was be like 2014, something like that. And my fiance at the time, I I remember this. Well, I obviously remember this quite well. I was on the bed reading Harry Potter because I didn't know better at the time.
As you do. Yeah.
And my fiance at the time walked into the room and said, "I don't want to marry you anymore," and walked out the house. Um, I laugh. I think it's hilarious now, but that is genuinely how it happened. Um, so, as you can imagine, my confidence was right on the bottom of the floor. You know, that we'd been together for a very long time, like a decade, and I just kind of felt like, oh, okay, I don't really understand what happened to my 20s now. Like, what kind of
Wow.
person am I? So yeah, with my confidence kind of trailing behind me, this friend who had been doing improv comedy suggested that it might be something that would help me to find myself again and help me find a sense of worth, because I just
Mhm.
felt so worthless at the time. And I was like, no, it's just like this. It's but my expectations of myself were so low that in the end, I thought, do you know what? I'm going to be awful. Let's just go and see just how awful I am.
Sure.
And so this first beginners course, it was like an all day thing. It was just so welcoming and so level setting. And it soon became very clear that the pressure actually was not on me to come up with something very quickly or do a gag or, just be the funniest person in the world. My job is to make someone else look good.
Yeah.
Having their backs, creating something together, saying yes, and building on each other's ideas, and knowing that the pressure is actually off you as an individual is. It is what frees you to be able to do improv, because I honestly don't think you can be a selfish person and want to take all the limelight for yourself and do improv at the same time. Like, there's
Mhm.
stand-up comedians for that. That's fine. Whereas in improv, if you go about building a story on your own, there's a steam partner over here who's like, and it's just like it's very uncomfortable for the audience to watch. So yeah, I started with the beginners course, and then just kind of I've been doing weekly workshops ever since. So kind of like 9 years now. And what we're
Wow.
doing right now is working on long form formats. So a few days ago, we got on stage to present our newest format, which is a detective murder mystery, but improvised. And so no one knows who the murderer is, apart from the murderer. And until we actually get on the stage, no one knows who the victim is. That is all decided by picking out a piece of paper on a hat and seeing if you've got M or V written on it. Everybody else
Oh
plays
my
a
gosh.
suspect, and it's their job to make themselves look guilty. But the audience is the one looking out for, we call it the blue herring, because at one point the murderer will drop themselves in it. The other suspects are creating red herrings. That's the blue herring. And I played detective, so it was my job to endow the various suspects. I didn't know who the murderer was,
Hmm.
with potential motives. It's like, I'm looking at your financial statement here, and it says that you're actually quite a bit in debt. Can you talk to me about that? Things like that, and kind of trying to pull the whole sort of story together so that the audience, at the end of the night, tries to make the right decision on who the murderer is. Inevitably, it never happens.
Of course. Yeah.
Yeah, it never
Because
happens.
if that's
Yeah,
fascinating though, like the idea of doing that with, you have these one or two prompts. Okay, this person knows they're the murderer, this person knows they're the victim, nobody else knows shit, and you're just like,
yeah.
go.
Go.
And
Yeah.
you have 45 minutes or however long, I don't know how long it is, but I mean, this
Yeah,
is some
45
very like,
minutes.
oh God,
Yeah.
it's like,
But yeah, we have like a format. So in the beginning, it's all about we learn a bit about the characters from some monologues. Then we
mhm,
have the detective interviews, and I'm trying to like wean out more of their story, but then also like throw some shit at them that they have to deal with.
sure.
Then we look at the crime scene, and it's like, okay, this is how the victim died, and this is the person who found it. Okay, we've got more information here. Then we interview some witness. We have this incident room where we all play cops, and we just like throw stuff, like gov, we got the toxicology report, and all this kind of stuff. So we have like a format, but yeah, anything could happen. But the group that we have, we're so strong as an ensemble, and we know what each other's strengths are, and that's probably like one of the first comparisons I would make to security, is that in the industry, you'll rarely find someone who is an expert at everything. It's
Yeah.
just there's not enough time in the day for that. You'll find some great generalists, but in-depth expertise, you'll probably be quite specialized. So finding people who can, knows each other's strengths and empowering people to do the thing that they are best at and bringing that blend as a team, that kind of works in improv. And I think, I'm obviously not a practitioner, but from the people that I've spoken to, that blend of different skill sets, having each other's backs and bringing the best out in your people, not, forcing them to do something that they just don't want to do,
Right.
that's at the heart of improv as well.
Yeah, I think that the part about, thinking on your feet obviously is very useful in life in general, but also in security for sure.
Yeah.
Um,
I think
and working on it.
the way to kind of think on your feet, and it just all it takes is a little bit of practice. So when
Yeah.
I'm on stage, or when I'm like in a scene, and I'm faced with a decision on like how to respond, inevitably I'm just like someone who just loves to raise the stakes. I just love to do it. But when I'm thinking about like how, like, depending on the situation and depending on the character that my scene partner is playing, what's the right decision? I've got this kaleidoscope of different ideas running through my brain. And obviously it happens very, very quickly. That one, that one. No, that one is the right one to choose. And because it's right, it's what the scene needs right now.
Okay.
And I think with experience, because when you're starting out, you've got this kaleidoscope of ideas, and then you like run away and you choose the safest one. Um, with experience, you learn to filter out the really bad ideas and go for the one that's going to light that other person up and is going to give them an enjoyable scene for them to take part in. So I think, yeah, thinking on your feet is not something that you either are or you aren't. It just comes with a little bit of practice.
Yeah, I think that's true. It still sounds extremely terrifying to me. Just having seen, like, I've only been to a handful of improv shows, and every time I'm just extremely uncomfortable for the people on stage. It just fills me with stress and anxiety, and I just want them all to be okay. And, like,
Yeah, I will say
but I'm,
improv audiences are incredibly friendly. They really want you
yeah,
to do well.
right.
And one of the ways to try and make your audience feel comfortable is accepting failure as the best thing in the world. And that again is something that comes with practice. But I do remember this was a good number of years now, but it was my 30th birthday. There was an improv show, and I got nominated to do an accent roller coaster, and I cannot do accents to save my life. So the format of this game is where you play like a two-handed scene. You get given a location, and you're building up the scene. And then at some point, someone on the side will say like freeze, and then ask for an accent from the audience. And then you've got to morph into that accent.
Oh no!
When I say like know your strengths, the accents are way down at the bottom rung. Normally with improv you get people to play to your strengths, but it's my 30th birthday and my friend is a dick.
Yep, I love it.
But and we got all these like different accents and stuff like that. Like I can barely do my own, but I really genuinely tried, and it just got so funny. It got so funny because I was just having the best time just trying. And so I want to make sure the audience go, oh my gosh, you can't do an accent. Oh my God, let's get off the stage as quickly as possible. I was like, no, I'm going to go both feet head over heels into this situation that has been forced upon me, and I'm going to have the best time. And it was just a wonderful scene set at Stonehenge. I think we were doing some graffiti, which is just like, the worst thing that you can do.
Stonehenge. What are we doing?
What are we doing? So yeah, trying to make the audience feel comfortable is all about trying to make yourself comfortable as well. Like, I don't know, when you hear like presentations and stuff, you don't hear the content as well if you're thinking about how the person on stage is coping.
Yes.
You hear the content so much better if it's delivered with such a sense of ease and willingness to really get the audience engaged, like what we were talking about before. If they're thinking about, oh my God, I have to say this bit next. What bit do I have to say next? And it becomes out like a statement of facts. It's just like you're just thinking about like they're fidgeting on things like that. Or no, if you like do things the whole hog, it makes everyone feel so much more comfortable. And I love failure now. I do remember not a stage. I know you're getting uncomfortable.
Oh my God, Hazel.
I just had such a lesson from failing in the wrong way early on in my improv career. So there's a game that we do called Die. Normally it's the first game that we do. And there is about 5 of us on stage. And there is like a director at the front. And we have to tell the story of a famous person from fact or fiction, which we will get as a suggestion from the audience. And we also ask for an object, not necessarily associated with that person. So the first, in this example, the suggestion was Darth Vader. I'm like, great, huge Star Wars fan. Know plenty about Darth Vader. This is gonna be awesome. And I believe the object was an egg. Cheese. It was cheese. That's right. And
random.
What I haven't told you yet is we have to tell the story, but we could only speak when the director points at us, and we have to carry on the story seamlessly from the last person. And it could be mid-word, could be mid-syllable, without saying or going ooh. So yeah, scary game, very scary game. However, incredibly fun. But what I was doing at the start, because I was so nervous, is I started planning ahead. And I started thinking, oh, geez, right. Oh, he could do this, he could do that. You could like put it inside his helmet or something. Like, yeah, that'd be really great. And whilst this was going on inside my head, it meant I wasn't listening to my fellow improvisers. And they were telling the story, and I was just concentrating on myself, being very, very selfish, because I wanted to look good. Now, by the time it got, so we'd done a few rounds, and then the finger of death pointed at me. However, the cheese had melted, and in my plan, the cheese had not melted. So I was faced with this and I just like committed suicide right there, which is a it's just a saying. I just had to go and kind of leave the game. And I realized at that point, planning ahead, trying to make it all about me, um, because I didn't want to fail, is probably one of the worst things that I can do. So it's still, I still get nervous, but I embrace the power of spontaneity and the magic and the adrenaline that can happen when you're creating something from scratch together.
It's an amazing kind of art form. I mean, as I said, it makes me extremely uncomfortable to think about doing it and even watching it. You know, if you can find all kinds of stuff on YouTube of, people from like Second City or,
Yeah.
SNL cast members, folks that are literal legends of them just absolutely dying up on stage in improv, skits, which is really funny, to see like Dan Aykroyd or somebody like that just eating it on
Yeah.
stage. But as you said, I think that's just a huge part of it because other, I mean, if you, the old, you learn more from failure than success, blah, blah, blah. But in
Yeah.
that specific case, I think you're going to fail more often than not, it seems like, or
Right.
in some form or another.
Yeah. So the godfather of improv is a guy called Keith Johnston. He's Canadian. Very sadly died a few months ago. But he taught my improv teachers.
Oh, wow.
And we learn a lot about his kind of techniques. And one of the things that he says is that the best improvisers will have really shit nights, because they're not the ones who the story is about. They're the straight person to play off against the more eccentric characters that might be created. So there's this juxtaposition, and they're there to drive the story along, but it's
Hmm.
not about, they're not the protagonist in the story. And I think that kind of like stays with me. Like it's not all about me. And that is both very, very comforting, but also it's a fundamental mentality of improv and also how I want to live my life, to be
Yeah,
perfectly honest. It's not all about me. The pressure is not all on me. I'm a better person. I'm a better communicator. I'm a more empathetic person if I understand the circumstances and what the people around me is going to be best for them.
that's a brilliant way of putting it. Nicely said. So I know that we're both big TV and movie fans,
Mm.
obviously. You mentioned The West Wing earlier, and we've talked a little bit about some of the things that we've watched in the past or I have not watched. I think you were trying to, was it The Diplomat you were trying to make me watch, which I have not started yet.
Unsuccessfully, I see.
Yeah, so far,
Yes.
so far. I'll get to it for sure. There's been like 8 other people that are like, "Dennis, you're gonna love this. You have to watch it." I'm like, "Okay, okay." I have to watch all these other garbage crime shows that I'm watching first. But so I, what are you watching now that you really like, or something that you've watched in the last year or so that has really sort of struck your fancy?
Um, I started watching a new show. I haven't seen many episodes of it yet, but my friend tells me it maintains its quality, and that's The Power. This is a show about how the teenage girls who are in very, very difficult circumstances gain the power to electrocute people.
Oh,
Yeah. And it
all right.
becomes, yeah, right. I think
I
like a
like
lot,
it.
I know, a lot of people kind of look down on shows that are about young women and think they're going to be about, this like some of the stereotypical stuff. Um,
Angst. It's gonna be
Angst,
angst,
daddy issues.
right? Yeah.
Yeah. Whereas this one seems to be about literally empowering women to get themselves out of the very, and we focus on like 3 different stories in the first episode, and they range from harrowing to someone who just hasn't like just doesn't know who they are and they're rebelling as a result.
Hmm.
And it's about, okay, they've been given this power. A, how do they process it? How do they use it? And B, how does the world around them react, particularly the patriarchy? So I'm excited
Those
to
guys are
those.
the
I mean,
worst.
yeah, one day. um, so I'm excited to see more of that. What else have I been enjoying recently? Oh, I made an amusing mistake. I was looking for The Last of Us.
Hmm.
My husband was he was away for a week, and I was like, maybe want to get a head start on The Last of Us. So I put it into the search box. and I came across this show called because I kind of vaguely thought that that's the name of it, and I came across this show called like This Is Us. I'm like, oh yeah, that's it.
Oh, yeah.
Started playing it, and I'm like, where are the zombies? But I watched all 6 series of This Is Us. It's a
Did you
beautiful.
really?
I really did.
Oh my God.
Like, yeah, I'm nothing if I won't like let a joke die. No, um, yeah, it's a beautiful drama. Like,
I know all
uh,
about it. My wife watched it
yeah,
religiously, and I
so
would come
good.
and go and watch a little bit of it. There was always somebody crying in a kitchen or like, some extremely sad thing happening, and there were way too many emotions and feelings for me. Like, okay, even though I love like a lot of those actors, like there was just
Yeah,
way too much
it's
emoting.
too
Like,
much.
okay,
Yeah,
this is
turn
great.
it off.
But it's definitely not The Last of Us at
It's
all.
definitely not The Last of Us, but I did end up watching that as well, and have actually bought the game, which I'm trying to complete. I'm not great at like first person gun shooter
Neither am I.
things.
Yeah.
I don't like it when someone shoots me in the back. But
Oh,
I thought the show was marvelous, and Pedro Pascal is just like he's just on another level right now.
he's
He's
the best.
just
Yeah.
wonderful. Yeah, so those are probably some of the things I've been enjoying recently. The most recent like film that I watched is actually a documentary called Still, the Michael J. Fox story.
Oh, yeah. I haven't seen that
Yeah.
yet, but
Oh,
I'm sure it's good. Yeah.
it's incredible. Like Michael J. Fox is just he comes across so genuine, really, really funny guy, but he's very accepting and very honest about well, not always being the greatest person. So yeah, it's a really beautiful look at his career growth, and starting where he did, and then being diagnosed in his late 20s, just as he was starting a family. Off the back of the tremendous success of Back to the Future and Teen Wolf
Yeah.
and all that kind of stuff, being diagnosed with Parkinson's disease, and his struggle to accept that, and his struggle to like he felt he needed to hide it from his colleagues on Sin City and things,
Yeah.
um, and being in tremendous pain to hide those tremors. So it's just a beautifully told story by him, very very honest. It kind of talks about he comes onto screen and he's got like a makeup artist like trying to cover up a humongous black eye,
Mm.
and he's like I fell and landed cheek first onto like an open wardrobe, and he's like that this is living with Parkinson's, you fall a lot, there's lots of footage of that, but he's very accepting of it now. And in fact, they showed a clip of when he testified in front of Congress and talked about the need for more money being donated to Parkinson's research. He walked up to the
Yeah.
podium and he said, I'm extremely moved to be here. So yeah, wonderful guy. And the clips that they choose from his movies are so well chosen, because they're kind of reaction shots to what the person Michael J. Fox is saying to
Oh,
camera. Yeah,
yeah.
beautiful documentary.
I saw that pop up. I forget what service it's on, but it's definitely something
Apple.
I'll watch. Okay. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because Back to the Future is one of my favorite movies. I loved Family Ties. Sin City was great. Yeah. And he's just shown, he's been sort of out of the public eye for a few years now, but he still has his foundation. He does all that sort of charity
Yep.
work, but every time you see him, you're like, golly, that guy, he's like still doing this. I understand the double entendre of the
Mm.
title, but it's been 30 plus years or 30-ish years since he was diagnosed,
Mm.
probably, or right around there.
Yeah, I think it was 91 he was diagnosed. Yeah.
Right. So a long time that he's had to live with this, and I'm sure it's limited his career in a lot of ways because he hasn't done very much in the last 15 or 20 years.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. He also talked about, because you know the story about him filming Back to the Future at night whilst he
I
was
do.
filming Family Ties during the day, and
Yeah.
he would get like 2 or 3 hours sleep, and someone like a taxi driver would arrive to take him to the set of Family Ties, and then he'd shoot all day, and then all night and Back to the Future.
Yeah.
And his career was quite similar for a number of years, and he talks about having missed quite a few key moments with his son, and realizing that that's actually not the kind of career that he wanted to have. So he scaled back for a number of reasons.
Hmm.
One of them being to spend more time with his family, and the other being to be much closer to home, and have a schedule that can be more easily maintained whilst he was grappling with this horrific diagnosis.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a tough story, but I'll definitely check that out. The one I wanted to, you and I messaged about this a while ago when I was watching it, this show called Kunk on Earth,
Yes.
which I don't, I had never heard of this, this person. I guess she's well known in the UK, but I had no
Yeah.
idea who she was. I watched however many, I think there's 5 or 6 episodes. I forget what it is. I don't think I've ever laughed that hard in my entire life. It's impossible to explain the premise of this show. She's essentially like a fake documentarian
Hmm.
going around and talking to real experts about a specific topic, whether it's religion or, some historical thing. And it sounds a little like Borat, but it's not that. It's more, I don't even know how to explain it. It's the funniest damn thing I've ever seen in my life. My stomach hurt after I was finished watching it. And I watched it all in like one afternoon.
Yeah.
It's absolutely brilliant and will just bring you to tears watching it. It's so funny.
Yeah, it's a wonderful perspective on the world that you would never ever think of. And
Yes.
like she just says things and reacts to things in a way that you just like, how is that in your brain?
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's relatively obvious at the beginning that she's, not doing that. Like she's not serious, but the other people don't really know this. I think some of them do, but not all of them. Cause you can
Hmm.
see the looks on their face. They're like, oh, well, I'm sorry. I don't even know how to answer that. That's the dumbest question I've ever heard. This person essentially is just like an idiot wandering around the world interviewing extremely
Hmm.
intelligent people.
Yeah.
Jesus, I was dying at that show. So funny.
But that's, as I say in the
Unbelievable.
book, that's the juxtaposition that really works in comedy. You've got someone
Yeah.
to move the story along that is playing it straight, and then you've got this other character who's
Yeah.
just able to bounce off of that and just create, resonances. And yeah, that is the secret formula of comedy to truly kind of make it work.
It's true. It's true. All right, Hazel. Well, I've kept you for almost an hour. This has been
Oh
delightful.
yeah.
I know. I know. I'm sure you have actual work to do,
Yeah.
but I know. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
wonderful to talk to you and catch up and cover all sorts of different topics.
Yes. It was
Yeah,
great to see you, and hopefully I'll see you in person sometime in the near future.
I hope so. Thank you.
All right. Take care, Hazel.